Welcome to Our Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
And I'm Angie.
Okay, so I'm excited today. I pushed for this species because I didn't know the Gobi bear existed. I honestly, when we did brown bear, I'm sure we might have mentioned it, possibly,
I
but
don't
it
know,
wasn't.
Chris.
Yeah.
That's why I love doing this podcast week after week, year after year. There's so much to learn. And gosh, I just can't wait to tell the Gobi bear story today. I mean, we're talking about the world's most endangered bear.
Mm-hmm.
Some have even coined it the loneliest bear in the world. So yeah, it's just a great find. I love you for all that you bring to this podcast, but definitely bringing us the Gobi bear this week is spot on.
Well, it wasn't until I watched The Wild Ones on Apple TV Plus. And I interviewed Aldo Kane a few weeks ago when we released that episode, an incredible interview on, what they were trying to do. I can't recommend this series enough. It's not your typical, documentary with animals. It really is a story of Aldo, who's, an ex-military, uh, officer, I believe, in the United Kingdom, and he was special forces, all of that, taking his team out to set up camera traps to find some of the most endangered species on the planet. And when they told the story of the Gobi bear, and I was watching this going, what? I didn't realize there's only 40 of them left.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and they're really stuck in one part of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. So that's the Great Gobi, strictly protected area in
Hmm.
southwestern Mongolia. It's, like Angie said, the rarest bear species on the earth. They are so unique compared to our other brown bears.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, they're the only bear that's evolved and is able to adapt to live in extreme hot desert climates and cold. And we'll talk about that when we get to their habitat. I mean, the swings in this place are dramatic. The landscape is dramatic. The footage was breathtaking. I mean, yes, it's it's a story that needs to be told again and again so people can hear it and keep fighting for the Gobi survival.
Yeah, no, it was an incredible story how they go out and they're trying to find some of these bears, and we'll talk about it because eventually they do. They were persistent, and because again, there are no Gobi bears in captivity anywhere in the world. And when you're talking only 40, and I think I forgot, in the range I have it, it's like
It's a
17,000
yeah.
square kilometers. Yeah.
It's huge, and
Yeah.
so they're covering. Yeah, I thought it was like 9,000 miles or something. I mean, just a huge range, and 30 to 40 to maybe 50 bears if you count some of the young ones. So not not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're really focused on protecting these bears in this range in Mongolia.
Well, and that's the
And
feel good
yeah,
story, right?
yeah.
That's
Hmm.
that's the hope that we're bringing to the table today. There's a lot of good groups out there. Obviously, story makers that want to share their story with us and find these bears. People that spend their whole life trying to protect them. So yeah.
No, they are. They're just incredible story today about these special. Again, they're a subspecies of the brown bear, but
Hmm.
they are incredibly unique. And to kick that off, Angie, what makes them different versus our other species of bear? Not just describing them, but how do they differ, say, from a grizzly or what I think of as a Kodiak brown bear, which is one of the biggest in the world?
Right. Well, we are going to talk about that because it's so funny. It was probably a couple weeks ago. Somebody asked me, like, well, so are all brown bears grizzlies or Kodiaks, or are all grizzlies brown bear? And I had to take a pause and go back to our brown bear episode and get my bearings and remember. So I know you're going to talk about that when we get to species, but everybody has a visual of what a brown bear looks like. And like Chris mentioned, the grizzly or the Kodiak, I think the biggest difference is just size, right? So the Gobi bear is brown. It has this fur that's dusty, sandy beige coloration, which helps it camouflage in this desert environment, but brown overall. A little bit lighter patches you might see on some of the Gobi bears around their neck or their chest. And during the winter, their fur may even have grayish patches in some areas. But other than that, I mean, their ears are round, maybe a little bit more oval shape. And it's their size. So the Gobi bear is much smaller compared to a grizzly or a Kodiak, and they're slimmer. So the adult males are anywhere from 96 to 138 kilograms, which is anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds. Female Gobi bears are much smaller. They're about 51 to 78 kilograms or 112 to 172 pounds. The Gobi bear's legs are also a little bit longer compared to other bears, and this aids in their long walks across this desert mountainous terrain in search of water. And we'll talk a lot about that, I promise. We'll talk about other cool adaptations. The claws are going to be shorter and blunter than your, standing on hind legs, Kodiak or grizzly bear. And this is probably a desert adaptation for the Gobi bear because they do actually do a lot of digging for plants, and which we'll talk about here when we get to nutrition. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much the same. Super cute, as always. I think the face is similar to other brown bears. It's just everything's a little bit smaller. Legs are longer in proportion to their size.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the weight, I mean, males up to 300 pounds. So, I'm thinking black bear size. I mean, the height when they stand up is, 5'2". So that's like 1.5 meters tall. And that's only 3 feet at the shoulder. So thinking more of a black bear, American black bear, a size for a brown bear, which is generally grizzlies can get up to 800 pounds. I mean, they're like 3 times the size of a Gobi bear. And then the Kodiak bear is massive. I mean, they get upwards of 1,500 pounds,
Crazy.
680, kilograms. So much so, Angie, that I did find the largest bear ever recorded in the polar bear.
Did.
Yeah, always. It was a Kodiak brown bear that weighed 2,500 pounds or over 1,100 kilograms. Stood 14 feet tall on its hind legs.
That's a big bear.
It's
a big bear. That's a big bear.
I talked about the brown bear story where my cousin was on Kodiak Island, and I think across the valley he saw a big brown bear and he booked it, but he felt something behind him and he turned around and the bear was right there. And
but you can't outrun them, so we know that.
No, he thought he was dead. The brown bear was just curious, and then it just jaunted off. So I would have died of a heart attack.
Hopefully he played the lottery that day or something. Jeez.
Oh my goodness, I would have died of a heart attack for that. So yeah, I mean they're a much smaller brown bear that has carved out this niche to live in this desert. And when I'm going to reference The Wild Ones because that is the only documentary that I've seen that showcases how harsh this environment is. To me, it looks like the surface of Mars. That dry, that rocky, that mountainous. And, when we think of historical range for the Gobi bear, it is that Central Asia steppe and desert mountain system. They weren't all over Asia. These are specialists. And you're going to find out, too, when I talk about their evolution history, this is a newer species.
That was so fun when you told me that.
Yeah.
Chris and I always practice a little bit beforehand or just talk about fun facts.
Yeah.
And he told me that one. I'm like, wow, I'm excited for that segment.
Yeah. I mean, brown bears have been around for millions of years, but
right.
This species is a new species. It's relatively young. And
they were just like, let's go live in the desert.
Yeah. And they've completely carved out this niche in Mongolia, northern China, little parts of Russia and Kazakhstan. That was historically where we thought they were. But because of human pressure, they have been severely curtailed back to this zone in Mongolia. So it's the Great Gobi Strictly Protected Area, Zone A. It's a desert reserve in southwest Mongolia that borders China. So while they might have had a bigger historical range, now they're in this region that here I've got the 17,000 square miles. It wasn't square kilometers. So it's
Oh,
big.
okay. Yeah, that's bigger than I thought.
44,000 square
Mm-hmm.
kilometers, about the size of Switzerland. And it's actually really great because it's one of the largest protected areas in the world. And UNESCO, the Biosphere Reserve, that they were actually, the wild ones were, hopefully going to get some camera trap footage of these bears to make it a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that was
Okay.
part of their goal. That's how they were helping conservation. If we go and set these camera traps out for months, see how many of these animals we can document, then go back and say, hey, look, we have evidence of them, Can we protect this area even further? Because as they've carved out this niche the last, tens of thousands of years, not millions, but, not quite 100,000, but roughly 30, 40,000 years that they've been here, they've become desert specialists.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and they have an impact up and down the food web in this desert ecosystem. Because you're going to find out, again, these bears are omnivores, but they mainly eat plants.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought panda, these specialists, right? And that has impacts up and down the food chain. So, why care about this species?
Oh, you're asking me why I can't.
Yes. That's it. Sorry, edit here.
I
for
thought
the
I
YouTube.
thought it was like a.
I was trying to lead you
I
into
thought
more
you were
why
asking
care.
the audience. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, how else can I lead you in there? So I said, why care more about the species? So, and you can go.
Well, Chris, the Gobi bear, with their nutritional habits, they really help maintain this fragile desert ecosystem. They act as what we call an umbrella species. So their conservation, fighting for their survival, actually helps maintain other plants and other animals in the area. Mainly, yes, they're an omnivore, but a large portion of their diet is plant-based. So they spread a lot of seeds and they travel a lot. So they're eating all these roots and tubers and grass and things that they can find, and then they spread the seeds throughout the 100 miles they traverse, 200, 300, 400, depending on if they're looking for a mate or traveling from watering hole to watering hole, which is in the desert. It's called an oasis. And there's beautiful footage I watched on BBC as well, as far as the middle of the Gobi Desert, brown, desert-like, rough terrain, and then just there's this little valley with all of this green. And it's really unique. It's a true oasis, and that in that area, it's spring fed. And so there's just water seeping in from the underground up where plants can thrive and where Gobi bears can find water and a little bit of reprieve from the harsh climate. So as they're traveling from oasis to oasis, they spread their seeds and they help keep this awesome environment. So we protect the Gobi bear, we protect all of these other plants and animals that depend on the way that they live. And the other thing, too, is the Gobi bear is culturally significant, and it's seen as a symbol of Mongolia's wild heritage and natural resilience, because wait till we start talking about some of their adaptations to live in this climate. So it's really important, not only, of course, the ecosystem, but then also the peoples of Mongolia to help save this cool, unique, just awesome creature.
Yeah, I'm just it one of the most remote, harsh environments, and
The only bear that wants to live there.
yeah, and because of it, other animals like the Mongolian wild ass, the kulan, the goitered gazelle,
We haven't
Argali
covered
sheep.
we haven't covered them, have we?
No, we did the onager, didn't we? Yeah, I think we did the onager. Or maybe we did Kulon. I don't know. We did one of them. It's so many species. Get lost. We did one of the wild asses
So many
there in
species, so
Asia.
little time, Chris. We got
Yes, I know. But, I mean, the Pallas cat, that's one that
Yes,
benefits.
my husband works with Pallas cats.
Yes.
They're as grumpy as they look, for the record.
There's wolves there that benefit because of the bears, red fox, the small mammals like the gerbils, other desert rodents, the birds of that area, the reptiles, amphibians. So up and down the food web, when you have this large predator, but more acting like almost like an elephant in a sense, moving large distances, eating this foliage, ingesting the seeds, digesting the seeds, and then pooping them out with manure, which is acting like fertilizer. And you're getting these plants springing up in this harsh desert environment that benefits so many different animals. So when they're removed from the ecosystem, you take that engineering out, like Angie was talking about, that umbrella away, and it does impact up and down. So my question was, how do we get down to 40 animals? Because that is critically low. I mean, that's on their way to extinction, on the cusp of extinction. Their claws are right on the edge, and they're being pushed over it. It's interesting. There's a couple things going on. I'm going to talk about rare earth minerals a little bit because that is impacting these ecosystems that these animals live in, driving them to extinction. When Angie and I do these segments and we talk about habitat loss, we talk about global warming, we talk about acidification of the ocean, it is because that is what's driving these animals to extinction. It is that critical to talk about. You have to care about it. And I go back to what Angie and I were talking about in the maned wolf episode. I had that comment like, I don't care about the desertification of the Sahara for the African porcupine. And I'm like, I failed you. I failed to excite you in the sense that you want to learn more about this, because what I'm trying to do is not just educate and spread the knowledge, inspire some action in you. And so at the end of this segment, I'm going to talk about these rare earth minerals and what you can do to help the Gobi bear. I mean, it indirectly helps them as well as the Congo and other parts of the world.
Well, what I found interesting too is the Gobi bear has been protected from hunting. It's been prohibited since 1959. So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you would just think that their numbers would be better. And when I get to reproduction, they do have a longer generation cycle. And it takes them a while to become reproductively active and that kind of thing. And they don't have a ton of offspring. But still, you would think that they would have recovered more than they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would think. You would think
with
protections.
with all the protection put into place. And I'm not exactly sure when more of the conservation areas protection went into place, but just the fact to outlaw hunting 75 years ago or so. I mean, that's, pretty good.
Yeah. Well, in the wild ones, they showed this massive highway running through the Gobi Desert that was just on the edge, I think, of the reserve. And they were looking or exploring about putting a highway in the middle of the reserve. And it was all of these coal trucks for a couple miles, like just, wow, coal trucks, just so long. And it is one of those, the development of that area, the mining, human encroachment that helped drive these numbers low, down to 40. Not only is it just so difficult to live there, like you talked about, but it is getting warmer there. So with global warming and increased desertification, it's just getting hotter, and it's impacting water holes. Plants, I go back to, we'll never do plants on this program.
Never say never.
No.
I have a budding interest. Trust me. I mean, I talk a lot.
Nice pun.
About plants.
No. Nice pun. No.
in my day job. But yes,
I would love to talk to a plant expert maybe
there
and
you go.
how
There you go.
conservation,
Yeah. Maybe
but like
retirement, more insects, more plants when I have time to study like the full week instead of just like 5 or 6
yeah.
hours.
Well, I talk about the Joshua Tree and in California, going out to Joshua Tree and seeing all of them, knowing that the young budding ones are dying because it's just getting hotter. They don't have the root system, to survive.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too with the Gobi bear population. It's actually with 40-ish left. It's actually heavily skewed towards males.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a
Yeah,
problem
that's
as
not good.
well.
Yeah, too many boys, not enough girls. Well, so they showed the coal, and China with coal, half of the global coal consumption is in China right now, close to 5 billion tons a year. That is a driver of global warming, and it's something that China has to overcome. I know they're investing a lot in renewables, but with, billion plus people, they need to provide energy. And there's a vast reserve of coal in the Gobi Desert. So we know that. Then you have, copper, gold, uranium. Another thing, it's controversial, but there's some of that found in Mongolia. I really wanted to focus on these rare earth minerals, which brings up this paradox, Angie.
Are they really rare?
Well, they're rare because, they're. I don't know. That's a different discussion for another day. I was expecting that question. They're rare
I
earth
gotcha.
minerals, meaning, gold. I grew up mining gold with my dad in the summer. That's what we did. He was a high school teacher. His hobby was mining gold. We had gold, you know, in Northern California, Southern Oregon, where we did quite a bit of gold mining. Even after the great gold rush in the 1800s in California, there's still gold up in them hills, right? Gold's not rare as some of these other ones that make our wild turbines, make our EVs, are in our electronics. So they're under high demand because we're trying to make the earth, we're trying to reduce the amount of carbon and everything we're spitting out in our atmosphere.
Of course, yeah.
So with electric vehicles, with, renewable energies, but it takes some of these rare earth minerals. So it's like, because a lot of these minerals are found in really biodiverse rich regions.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. I Googled it. Rare earth minerals are not necessarily rare. They're actually found in abundance throughout the Earth's crust, and they're more common than some precious metals, but they're very difficult to extract because they're found in low concentrations usually, and they're mixed with other minerals. So the rare is basically that they are difficult and there's a high cost of finding them in these large deposits. And of course, with that being said too, it's hard to, I guess, do it in an environmentally healthy way, if that's even a thing. So there you go.
Well,
They're not,
yeah. I mean, it's the open
yeah.
pit mining. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just so destructive.
Yeah.
It's so destructive. It just destroys the landscape, and then
Hmm.
all the roads and infrastructure and
Right.
trucks burning gasoline. These aren't electric trucks. These are
Yeah.
diesel trucks
Yeah.
going through the heart of the Congo, going through Myanmar, Madagascar, other parts of the world where they're really, biodiversity rich regions.
Yeah. Well, in those
Then there's
places too, they're
pollution.
ripping
Yeah.
up trees and doing all that just
Yeah.
to get the roads in and to dig in the mines. So yeah, it's
It's
even
a
more
lot of using large amounts of
destructive.
water,
Yeah.
acid leaching. So it contaminates the groundwater, contaminates the rivers with heavy metals and waste. So it is destructive. These rare earth minerals, the mining is destructive. And that's where we're getting in trouble in these regions with like the Gobi Desert. And even though these are green technologies, the supply chain's dirty.
Right. That's a
Like you
good
talked
point.
about. Yeah. So
I mean,
it's impact.
I love my Prius.
Yeah.
And I want an EV really bad. That's next on the list. So, but
Well, we have an EV. I mean, I bought an EV, and I know making it
right.
was like, oh, but okay. So it's impacting Asian elephants, the tigers, all. Think about the forest elephants and all the aquatic wildlife in our freshwater systems, the primates, all these animals are being impacted. Okay. So what can we do about it? That's kind of the point I wanted to get at, is really think about our consumption, because we're over consuming. We already know that. We're almost using 2 Earth's worth of resources per year now. We're like 1.6, 1.7 of the Earth's natural resources that humans are using. So we're going to run out. We still need these rare earth minerals. They're critical for our smartphones, all of that. But we can reduce our unnecessary consumption. So, do you really need that phone upgrade every year? Apple wants you to buy a new phone every year because that drives profit for them. Samsung, I have a Samsung. Angie has an Apple phone uh, or an
And we're
iPhone.
still friends.
Yes. I can't go back to Apple ever. That's me. But anyways, do
John
you
wants
need...
to leave, and I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, it's so hard.
Those might be fighting words. I don't think I can
It's
send him a text and see that green bubble pop up. It will be like
it's not just that. It's just all your
heartbreaking.
files. It's so hard to convert back
Yeah.
and forth. But do you really need to upgrade every year, Angie? Like, do you need...
No, I never do. I mean, my phone's probably like 4 or 5 years old. I
Good.
wait till they die.
Yeah,
Same thing
yeah,
with
mine's a
same
couple
thing. I
years
do.
old,
I use
yeah.
a MacBook too. I use it for work. I use it for I use it for everything, and it goes until it dies, basically.
Okay.
And then, but with that being said, then I always recycle them.
Exactly. You can recycle it. But I was also thinking repurposing. So, like, we got a new computer. I had an old computer. I wiped it clean, the hard drive, all that. We gave it to our friend for her young son.
Yep.
Who wanted a PC.
Yep.
So I was able to, instead of not throwing that away ever,
Right.
either recycle it or give it to somebody else.
Right, or Apple will buy it back
it.
from you, super cheap or whatever. But then they will repurpose it, or at least take the parts for sure.
Yeah, I mean, only 1% of rare earth minerals are recycled right now.
That's so silly, yeah.
So
And
there are plans in place to get that going more.
yeah, and a lot of the zoos do really good recycling electronics campaigns. They're to help promote basically mountain gorilla conservation and stuff like that. So trying to really help educate the public about the rare earth minerals and how it's destroying habitat for so many animals. But obviously, like, the gorillas are so magnanimous that people pay attention to that, especially if they just maybe saw them in an exhibit and saw them interact and fell in love with them. So, but yeah, obviously zoos are not the only places. I mean, I think like stores will have them. So obviously your local carrier should have the recycling things. Communities will have we have just in general, no electronics in our house will ever go to a landfill. They always go to a proper electronics recycling place. Everything from cable to because John and I aren't savvy to what part's important or not important, so we let them deal with that, and it goes to the right hands.
Yeah. That's so important, because that's, if we do more of that, there's less demand to go out there and mine this. The other aspect of it is really pushing for responsible mining standards. So there is the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance. It's IRMA. That is helping us as consumers and investors pressure industries to adopt cleaner policies. So there are some major brands that are stepping up. So automakers like BMW, Volkswagen, Ford, GM, Mercedes, Tesla have signed on to buy responsibly sourced minerals. Yep. Microsoft, Tiffany and Company are also sourcing from this IRMA.
Okay.
Unfortunately for me and you, Angie,
I didn't hear Apple in there.
Apple, no, or Samsung.
Is it time to write a letter?
Yes, they are not currently IRMA members.
Because
And
normally
if
you and I say vote with our dollar, but
yes,
I don't see myself at this point not buying an Apple, at least
but
computer.
it
I'd be open for the phone maybe, but
yeah, it's they're not IRMA members,
okay.
and the feeling is if they did,
Hmm.
it's a game changer. It would change everything because that's the largest users of these rare earth minerals. Because everybody has cell phones. There's 8 billion of us. So how many billion phones are there? And then how many are made every year?
Hmm.
How many are thrown away,
Right.
not recycled? So it really is something that I think we could pressure these companies to do that, support innovation, alternatives. And, for us, the listeners, me and Angie, think before we upgrade, keep our devices longer, recycle like Angie said, look at these brands, look into them before you buy anything electronic, and share,
Yeah.
and share this information and, social media and be very careful because we're hearing rare earth minerals in politics here in New Zealand, there in the US for sure. How important they are, that this war in Ukraine, that is a big deal that's in the news cycle, because there's such a big need for them for our tech companies. And it is having a huge impact like the Gobi bear. So just keep that in mind. Now, evolution with bears follows similar patterns to most of our other carnivores. Uh, The families Ursidae, these are the 8 major species of bears across 3 families. I'm going to talk about the differences a little bit in them. When we get to the Ursinae, that is the brown bears, and I'm going to kind of go through the differences in there. But you have the giant pandas all on their own island, the most shouldn't be a bear, but is a bear. And I see videos of them. They're just, oh my goodness.
Eating their bamboo,
And,
super happy.
they're just
Ovulating once
amazing.
a year, as you do.
They have they're definitely the most charismatic bear. Like they just crack you up. I don't know how John didn't love working with.
I have to get him back on the podcast to tell the story about why he is not a fan of panda bears. But he worked with them, so he has firsthand knowledge of how picky
Yeah,
they are, high maintenance they are. Of course, when they're living under human care in the United States, on loan, they're expensive. I think
yes,
that's
yeah,
probably the biggest thing. When it's not about
yeah,
the money, it's about the money. Even with my
yeah, yeah,
husband,
yeah,
yeah. So they cost, he worked with them at Zoo Atlanta, and they cost Zoo Atlanta a lot of
yeah,
money. Where, I mean, that's good because people would go there just specifically as one of the 2 or 3 zoos, depending on what year it is, that will have pandas. But it's still so much money that could be spent on, I mean, obviously all the animals that he worked with had great welfare, great, well taken care of, spoiled, all of that. But still, that it's a lot of
yeah.
money for just one or
W-
two,
One
uh,
species, yeah, of
one
panda, yeah,
species, 2 individuals, or 3, however many they had. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. They were fun. They were fun to cover, and yeah, the
I
running
make
joke
him
on the
take me to
podcast,
Atlanta just to
yeah.
see them still.
But the
So,
running joke on the
and the
podcast is
kids.
it was not John's favorite animal by
Yeah,
far. Like
but
it
it's
was,
not
they
even
were
it's not
so
even
hard.
a joke. Like all the students,
Yeah,
he's had hundreds of students over the years at Santa Fe College teaching zoo. Like they all know that John is not a fan of pandas. He's not
yeah,
shy
yeah.
about it. But yeah, but he, like I said, he has firsthand knowledge of them, and of course, overall, he wants them to be successful.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Obviously.
They're
Yeah.
very picky. They like very few species of bamboo. So
Yeah. And yeah, just incredible, incredible. Still the digestive tract of the omnivore bear, and all they eat is bamboo. All right. So there's your panda subset. Then you have the speckled bear. Okay. Again, another offshoot of Ursidae. Then you get into Ursinae, where we have the sloth bears. They're pretty old. The sun bear. Then you have the Asiatic and American black bears, the polar bear, and then the brown bears, which There up to
Are you
16
going to answer my
subspecies.
question at the beginning of the podcast? Are all grizzlies brown bears?
Yes.
Same for the Kodiak. Or
Yes.
are all brown bears grizzlies?
No. Grizzlies are a subspecies. So,
Well, am I correct in saying all the types of brown bears are subspecies, right?
yeah, so you have the brown bear, right? So Ursus arctos is the species name. Then you have upwards of 16 plus subspecies. Still some genetic studies that put not so many subspecies like the Eurasian. They're probably the same subspecies, but there's different populations in different parts of Asia. In North America, you have the grizzly bear, Ursus arctos horribilis. So that's the grizzly. The Kodiak is Ursus arctos middendorfi, which is just on Kodiak Island. That's among the
So grizzlies
largest
and
bears in the
Kodiaks
world.
are different subspecies.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Then you have the peninsula or Alaskan brown bear. So Ursus arctos gaius. Then two extinct species, the California grizzly, which is on my home state that I grew up
on
with.
Your
it's
flag,
on
man.
our state flag. And that poor thing's extinct. The last one was shot in 1922 in Tulare County. Yeah, that just, it really, the discovery of gold, the mass migration to California pretty much drove the California grizzly to extinction. The Mexican grizzly is now extinct, and that was in 1964. Okay, so those are North America. Europe, you've got the Eurasian brown bear, the Cantabrian brown bear, Carpathian brown bear, and then the Italian brown bear. And that one's pretty low too, only about 60 or 70 in Italy of those. So the Eurasian, Cantabrian, these are like probably the same subspecies. Okay, then in Asia, you've got the Siberian, Amur, Himalayan, Tibetan blue bear. That's kind of a cool one. Yeah, the Gobi and the Syrian. And then there's a couple island populations. So brown bears are not in Africa, so we don't have any bears in Africa. North America, Asia, Europe. Okay, and then some of the islands like Kodiak and stuff off Alaska and parts of Siberia. Japan. Oh, I didn't cover the Japan one. There is the Hokkaido. Ooh, my Japanese is not good. You do have the Kamchatka brown bear. That's an island off Kamchatka Peninsula in Siberia. Then the Hokkaido. That's it. Hokkaido brown bear off Hokkaido, Japan. So sometimes they group them with the Amur bear, but they are there in Japan. So, yeah. Evolution on bears, they emerged around 30 million years ago. They go to Miacids again, too. That's where all of our carnivores came from. You have those three families with the giant panda, the speckled, and then the ursinae. And the pandas split pretty early, like 23 million years ago, and just became their own fun species of bear. They're the best. Speckled bears around 12 million years ago split off, and then it's about 6-7 million years ago where we get the radiation out of the Ursinidae, right? Ursinidae. Yeah, Ursidae is for all bears. Ursinae is these species. So they split out about 5-6 million years ago. And the Gobi bear, they think, because we don't have a lot of, it's just genetics, we don't have bones or fossils. Really, the end, tens of thousands of years is when they've kind of, during the Pliocene or early Holocene, is when they decided to go into the desert and say, okay, there's no bears here. We'll carve out a niche and we'll survive here. And they've kind of
boy,
just
did
adapted. Yeah. But what we do know genetically is low genetic diversity, which isn't good because they've been isolated for thousands of years. They are closely related to the brown bears in Central Asia, so we know that's kind of where they came from. But it's a new species that said, hey, I'm going to carve out a life here in the desert and survive. And I want to get to how they do that. Quick facts, just like other bears, lifespan 20 to 25 years. We don't know beyond that because there are no Gobi bears in captivity. They're assumed to be just as fast as other brown bears, so 30 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour, short bursts. Like I said, my cousin saw it across the valley. It wasn't like a huge valley, but, river edge. And he ran, and within 2 minutes, the bear was right behind him. They are fast. You can't outrun them. Don't think you can outrun them. You
No.
can't. They're really, really fast. So Gobi bears probably that too. Gobi bears are thought to maybe be a little bit more agile than a Kodiak bear because they're leaner. Like Angie said, a little bit longer legged. Not a lot of threats for them. Maybe wolves when they're young, but
Just
yeah,
where
I
they
mean,
live, I think
yeah,
that's their biggest threat, especially
yeah,
since
yeah.
they're so heavily protected too.
But I think that turns to Angie. Okay, how do they survive in this insane environment?
Well, I think we have to define insane environment
Yeah,
because we've talked a
yeah,
lot about different environments, from the midnight zone in the ocean to of course creatures that fly in the sky and travel 10,000 miles a year, whatever it is. So, yes, the Gobi Desert. I had to do some digging because I wanted to learn a little bit more about this region, and it is some of the planet's most extreme temperature swings. So, everybody always, in general, we're always taught deserts are hot. They are, but they also get cold too, depending on where, geographically speaking, the desert is. And the Gobi Desert happens to be in an area where these temperature swings can range from about minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 40 degrees Celsius, in the winter, to 113 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius in the summer. And so that's one thing, this from season to season swinging about. But there's been studies that have shown some of these fluctuations can happen rapidly within a single day because of its high altitude and arid climate. And so some of these temperature changes in one day, 24 hours, it can change about 63 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius in 24 hours. I'm telling you, that's more than this perimenopausal lady happens over here. Like that's unbearable. I'm sorry. Like that is insane. That is a definition of an insane climate. I
yeah,
mean, that
yeah.
swing. I mean, I say unbearable to be funny, and yeah, it's a little funny. The
No,
punny, little punny,
I
funny.
did get that.
But
I got the plant one.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 63 degrees Fahrenheit in a day, 24 hours.
Well,
Like that's
when back in my army days when I
That's
was
a
out
lot.
in the Mojave Desert, it was 115, 118 during the day, and then it was freezing at night. I remember bundling up, going, because your blood,
Well,
when you live in a
you acclimatize or you acclimate,
yes,
depending on
yeah,
how you want to look at it. But
yeah,
yes, and so your body, okay, I can do this hot thing right now.
mm-hmm.
But then for it to change so quickly to do the cold thing, it's just
Well, yeah, when I went from Florida to New Zealand, I died in the first winter practically. It was freezing. I remember waking up in the morning and poor little Rourke, my son, was by the heater shivering with a blanket because it was so cold.
I
And we were
know.
from Florida where it was like, 90, 100 degrees every day. And
Well, and
yeah,
it's so
but now
embarrassing being a
and now
Michigander, but I live in
yeah,
Florida for many years now. And yeah, I go home and it gets below 70 and I'm like, where's my sweatshirt? It's just
yeah.
it's embarrassing.
So, but
Honestly.
the point I think you're making is, because in Florida it can get cold in the winter over a few days, but
Yeah.
you don't get that swing in the same day. Like you said, it might get to
No,
70,
no.
not -5, where in the desert it does. Yeah. And so these
63
bears have to survive that.
degrees change, a 63-degree change. That's
nuts,
like
yeah.
it going, from, and if you're thinking Fahrenheit, that's like it going from 30 degrees to 93 degrees. No,
So how do
thank
they
you.
survive?
That's a
How do
lot.
they do it?
Well, Chris, great question. I mean, they have a lot of strategies. So, their small body size. There's a reason that they probably evolved over time when they separated out from the brown bears of Central Asia to get smaller, because that allows them to have a reduced food and water needs in the desert, where they have to traverse all this area where if they're hot, it's hot out, they don't want to travel that much. If it's cold, they probably do a little bit better traveling in the cold, but they're going to find less water. So the small body size should be helpful in that. Also, thick fur. The Gobi bears has this really thick underfur and dense guard hairs, and that actually helps insulate them against freezing nights, which makes sense to me. But also, it protects them from being scorched by the sun. So the in this situation, in this harsh desert climate, having a thick fur is actually better than having very thin fur for the Gobi bear. Um, and then they also are really efficient with their fat storage. So we'll talk about the Gobi bear's hibernation. It's not really a true hibernation, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But what the Gobi bear will do is they undergo a period of what we call hyperphagia, just a fancy word for eating a lot. And they do that in the late summer, fall area. And this helps them efficiently put on the fat that they need for the winter dormancy when there's not much food available. But then, and that keeps them warmer, of course. But then over time, they'll lose that fat. They'll live off that fat and then in the summertime, they have less fat and then can move quicker and do what they need to do when the weather is hot. The other thing too is this low water dependence. So if you live in the desert, whether it's a hot desert or an ice desert, right? You probably don't want to have to drink a lot of water to survive. So the Gobi bear can go really long periods with little water. So they can survive on dew, succulent plants, and then other moisture-rich roots that they eat. So they can get most of their hydration just from the food that they eat. So those, and then their claws too. Their claws, they've adapted for doing a lot of digging for some of these roots and tubers and different foods that they eat. So that's what I found. What did you come
Yeah,
across,
yeah, yeah,
Chris?
yeah. No, and I just I always find this interesting. These desert animals. When I go to the fennec fox and some of these others that
Those
we've.
ears,
Yeah, I
those ears are
know, I know.
cute.
But we come across their kidneys are really
Yeah,
efficient. So
yeah.
y- our kidneys in mammals, they're filters and regulators.
Mhm.
So we each have, bears. These Gobi bears have two. We have two. They filter the blood, so they're removing waste like urea and any toxins that our cells might produce. They balance our electrolytes, so like sodium, potassium, calcium. They'll regulate water. So it was interesting because I went on a trip, really hot climate, came home. It was cold in New Zealand, and I was, I don't know, quote unquote, peeing like a racehorse because when I was on my trip, I was sweating a lot. And so I didn't have to use the restroom as often. But when I came home and it was cold, my body was like, oh, you have too much moisture. So my kidneys were producing more urine, right? To decide on how much water to keep or release. And I'm sure you and everybody else listening has experienced that. You go from a really cold climate and you're not keeping as much water in your body because you don't need it. You're not sweating. I'm not losing moisture, right? So your kidneys are keeping that balance going. And they produce the urine, maintain balance, pH, red blood cells, vitamin D, all of that. What we think in the Gobi bear, and we know in some of these other desert loving animals, is they're very efficient, like I said, with a hot climate, maintaining water retention. And they concentrate their urine highly.
Mhm.
So I can just imagine how stinky it must be. Just like, wow. Camels do this. We talked about it with camels, some of our desert rodents, all of these arid
Yes, because that
adapted
and those
species.
camels, those humps, two if they're Bactrian, one if they're dromedary camels, those are fat reserves, not water,
Yeah,
right?
not water. Yep, yep, yep. So it just means they just conserve water much, much better. Their kidneys are more efficient.
Mhm.
So evolutionary, whatever way, these smaller bears, these bears that could do this, uh, they just they just adapted.
Yeah.
It's like their secret weapon. You always talk about superpowers, right? So maybe the Gobi bear's kidneys are their superpower, and other physiological facts. You talk about the fat and everything
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
survive and,
Yeah.
and do well. I mean, they've obviously been there for thousands of years, so they've carved out their niche. They've emerged. Like
Mm-hmm.
here we are, desert loving bear, and sadly they're
The
heading
only
towards
one. The
extinction.
only one. The
Yeah,
only one.
yeah,
Yeah. And then
yeah.
everybody's always talks about bears and how they hibernate.
Hmm.
But and the Gobi bear actually it doesn't have a true hibernation where it reaches a profound dormant state with a really lowered body temperature and really lowered metabolism. What Gobi bears do is have an active hibernation or basically like a winter lethargy. So this means they basically potentially can wake and be active during a mild winter, depending on the conditions or if they're disturbed. So it's not the true deep hibernation. But this hibernation-like state or winter lethargy will happen with the Gobi bear from about November to February or March, once again, depending on Mongolia's winter and how harsh it is. And basically, when those temperatures drop to -40, you can probably imagine that there's just not any food to eat anyways.
Yeah.
So, the bears will basically become more active once those temperatures start to warm up and they can start looking for food again. And I thought it was really fascinating because uh, the Gobi bear doesn't always make a traditional den. It will sometimes basically just use dried grasses and twigs it'll create like a thick bedding to help insulate itself from the cold, but it's not like they don't like always find a cave, which is what I always think of. Like that's what you read about in books when you're a little kid and stuff. Some do, and of course they need to study them more. Some Gobi bears will make their winter dens in like a south-facing mountain cave or natural shelter, so that'll help provide some protection from the wind and the cold. But sometimes they're just like throw together some bedding. So they're
There you
hardcore,
go.
man. These are like some punk
Yeah,
rock bears. They're just like, it's crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But yeah, so that's yeah, so it's not a true hibernation, but when they are in this dormant period or winter lethargy, the Gobi bear will use a lot of the fat that they stored up in the summer and fall when they were doing all that foraging. So they definitely utilize the fat that they've built up.
I thought it's interesting, south-facing caves, because the northern winds coming down off Siberia, you just got to be
Ouch.
frigid, freezing. Yeah, so
And
that's fun.
and of course, I think I'm talking about the actual temperature, not the feels like, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
crazy.
It's cold. All right,
Hmm.
so here, quiz time. What species
Oh,
do not hibernate a bear? There's 4 that I have written down.
pandas.
Yeah,
Um, I love
food
this
year
so much.
round. Here you go. Here's your
Well,
hint.
I've got Florida black bears down here.
Yeah, I think they're not on my list, but
Oh,
I think
I went
they
off list. I'm done.
no, 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 no. I don't think they hibernate per se for long periods. I think they probably have periods of torpor, but I'm just trying to remember down there in Florida because food year round. So yeah, Florida,
Yeah, what
maybe
are my
those black
South
bears there.
American bears? Is that the speckled bear?
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's
Okay.
2.
Okay.
So now we're going. Let's go to
Mm.
Asia.
Oh, Asia. Sun bears?
Yep, one
They have
more.
sun in the name.
Yeah, and I think we did this one. Pretty sure we did this one.
Oh, moon
They're lot.
bears.
No,
Oh,
yeah. Wasn't that what some bears are called?
I think so.
No. Yeah. All right. Think of the animal that
Charades.
super moves super slow.
Oh, sloth bear.
Yeah. There you go. Sloth
Thank
bear.
you.
It's
That's easy.
yeah. In Asia, they just have tons of fruit. They have tons of food,
Yeah.
honey, all of those things, so they can
Year
eat year
round.
round.
Yeah.
Pandas have to eat year round, and then the Gobi bear, like it's just so harsh that they
Yeah.
can sleep for a while, but
Yeah. They're
they
like,
don't
peace
have these
out.
huge. They don't have these huge fat reserves that these Kodiak or grizzlies or other brown bears get. So they need to keep eating. Other things before we get to diet is just, what I always find fascinating when we cover bears is they have the best sense of smell of any mammal.
I know. I just visualize their
Seven,
little nose twitching.
yeah, 7 times better than a bloodhound.
Oh,
So
good. Thank you for bringing that fact. I was going to ask. Seven
yeah, yeah,
times.
better than a bloodhound. It's one of the best. Dogs
Insane.
can smell 2,000 times better than a
Wow.
human. So take those showers if you're
That
a
is
Gobi
enough. That's,
bear.
but that's another superpower. I mean, Chris, we
Yeah,
can't even imagine that. And I
no,
try when I'm talking to some of my students, in horse behavior, equine behavior class, because horses have a really good sense of smell too. I don't know where it falls as far as time, more than humans, but way more than humans. Not probably as much as dogs. Obviously, definitely not as much as bears. But they're actually using horses to do rescues of humans in the mountains now.
wow, okay,
Yeah,
oh,
so they have a really good sense of smell, and I try to, like, have my students, I'm like, "Close your eyes, okay?" Now, my example is because our classroom is, I don't know, probably, like, 200 feet from our stables, and so I'm like, "So I smell the air, and I can picture my husband walking into the barn carrying my toddler, and my toddler just ate a vanilla frosted sprinkled donut."
yeah,
Like, imagine if you could smell that, I can
yeah,
also
yeah,
I can also smell that my husband is missing me or, whatever it is.
yeah,
And I think, and my
pheromones, yeah,
kid
yeah, yeah,
has, my kid is about to get a strep throat
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
it's a real superpower. And so now you're telling me this is like 2,000 times. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine it. I can't even imagine
Well,
all the information. That's why I let my dog put their head
yeah,
out the window when I'm driving, like not super fast,
yeah,
just their head.
just a sniff.
Yeah, think about it. Just must be like heaven. I don't know. Or
Yeah,
maybe
all the
it's not.
different
Maybe
smells.
it's like overwhelming. I don't know. They seem to like it though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. Superpower in the Gobi Desert. I mean, finding water, moisture, these
Sure.
berries and
Finding each
shoots.
other.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
carrion. You could smell like, oh, there's a meal over there I might be able to get. So that's probably another way they were able to not only get why they were smaller, but also that nose. And
man,
it's
we should
just,
just do a whole podcast about smell. It's just
yeah,
incredible in some of these creatures, and we're learning more
yeah,
about it, like
yeah,
the
yeah.
the density of the neurons. It
Insects
and
smelling. Yeah.
and the other thing that's so cool about your nasal passage is you have stem cells in there, and they're actually studying them at the University of Florida. Both you have them in your tongue. Like
Hmm.
if you drink hot chocolate and you burn your tongue, or you eat pizza that's too hot. I've done that all the time. And you burn your taste buds. Like a few days later, they'll come back. Similarly to those I've like lost my smell twice when I've had COVID, and it's a weird, horrible feeling. It comes back after a couple weeks, though. And that's because you have stem cells in your nasal passage, but they're stem neuron cells. So it's very, very fascinating. And they're trying to learn more about them more for regenerative nature of neurons and stem cells that could be used throughout the human's body. But it's just a fun time to be alive, how we can learn all this stuff and how
Science.
it
Yeah.
works in science. It's so cool.
Uh,
And 2,000 times
that's
my
insane.
smell.
It's
This is
insane.
great.
Yeah.
It's insane. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite facts of the day. Thank you
All
for
right,
bringing that.
there you go. Let's talk about what these bears eat. A lot of it plant-based. We've talked
Yeah.
about, Angie talked about the roots and berries and fruits and seeds and nuts. Sometimes we'll get animal protein, but usually rodents or small mammals. They will eat carrion and maybe some insects. Bears will eat larvae and stuff like that if they can find it. And there are oases, I guess, out in the Gobi Desert for moisture if they need it. But like Angie said, it's mostly plants, and maybe
Yeah.
prey.
I mean these oases can be hundreds of miles apart. So yeah, they especially in those harsh, hot summers, they have to get their moisture from a lot of the plant content they eat. And what I thought is fascinating is that studies have shown that the animal matter that the Gobi bear eats makes up about 1 to 8% of their diet. So grasshoppers, rodents, that kind of thing, maybe carrion, as Chris mentioned. So it's only about 8% animal protein. So they're getting a lot of their protein, of course, from uh, plants and not animals. So yeah, it's just a very different strategy than our typical brown bears. Because when we think of especially some of the bigger brown bears, they will hunt for prey. But the Gobi bear does not actively hunt large prey at all. Their hunting is for basically digging, using those claws to dig for roots, collecting berries, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're great foragers though. That
Yeah.
using that
Yeah.
smell,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they can dig out roots, edible plants. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, Angie. I
Yes.
got Aldo Kane on the line, and he's asking me,
Hello.
Chris, and I said, well, I got to go to my behavior expert, Angie.
Oh
He's
boy.
like, okay, we're going to go lay out these camera traps.
Hmm.
How am I going to find these bears? How far do they range? What are they doing? Are they moving mainly at night? Are they moving during the day?
Sure.
Uh, are they, how often do they come across each other? Like, I need your advice on where to go and how
Well,
to track these bears.
I would tell him to hire me to collect more of this data.
Yes, yes, please bring us with you.
Because let's get some more money from Apple TV. But there's not a lot of studies. We need more of this to understand what they're doing, how they're going. We do know that they usually will traverse well-worn paths, and uh, we didn't quite talk about it yet, but there are some supplemental feeding programs for the Gobi bears as part of their conservation efforts. And so that might be changing some of their just natural history, their natural range, because if they need in some of these extreme either droughts or really harsh winters, they'll put extra food out for them. And so I would say put the camera traps by the supplemental food. Would be
Yeah, there you go.
that's where I'd want to go study them. But then after that, you probably need drones and collars and all sorts of things because Gobi bears roam over, like Chris said, these large territories. Females, 514 kilometers squared. Males, over 24,000 uh,
Oh, so
square kilometers. So, I mean, that's a lot. So, and that's a lot of camera traps. So, good luck,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
But the other thing too is they do have some of these oases, and so you can put some camera traps there, especially in spring, summer, fall, that kind of thing, because these water sources will definitely are like precious. I mean, they're an oasis. They're like, I mean, is it a dream when you see this green amongst this brown? So that would be a great place to put them. Now, because they have this season of dormancy or winter lethargy in October to March, if you probably wouldn't want to waste your time or your money with your cameras then, right? Unless if you're able to track one to know where its den was, then maybe that might be fun to see because they have this somewhat of an active hibernation. Maybe they do come out sometimes. We could learn more about that because once again, a lot of this stuff uh, are going on a few accounts here and there,
Yeah.
not a lot of data on their behavior. And of course, we know how their cousin, the brown bears, a lot of the other subspecies behave. So we can make some inferences, but I would say we need more data, more data, more data, which means we need to conserve these Gobi bears so we can learn more about them. But in general, the Gobi bear will be more active in cooler periods of the day, so like night, dusk, dawn, and yeah, during the heat of the summer in the middle of the afternoon, you could probably let your camera trap go to sleep because you're not gonna. They're smart; they're not gonna travel then. So yeah, their territories rarely overlap, which also kind of stinks from trying to. They're very solitary. So besides moms and cubs. And that footage is like gold mine if you can get that. But the males will not be crossing each other's territories. So that also makes it hard to film them. So I would say good luck. Hire me. I'll try to, to help. But yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely need more data on them, I would think. So
Yeah.
I would suggest either drones, radio calling them, that kind of thing
Yeah.
before I put my
No,
camera
that's it.
traps out.
It was, yeah. You could sense the frustration of Aldo and this team. They they were having difficulty finding the Gobi bear because you said massive territories. There's only, we think,
And
40.
tough terrain.
But you said, it's funny you said that, and you were like, it would be a gold mine to find a mom and a cub. This is why you should watch that episode. I don't know if I could sell it anymore for Apple TV. They're not paying me a cent.
No, they're not. They're not sending me any free cell phones.
No.
I don't want them. I mean, mine works great.
I love seeing these shows, and I learn, and this series is really entertaining, and it's really important for conservation. But they found the gold mine, Angie. They did find a mom and this cub, and I have the screenshot of the cub on my screen. It is well worth waiting that episode to see that cub come across a camera trap. And
I just got goosebumps because I was going to say, it fills me with hope, right? Yeah. Hopefully she's a female too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But it does. I mean, it really does. And so, yeah, that's great. But otherwise, to find each other, some of the cool behaviors that Gobi bears will do is they definitely use their scent to mark territory. They either rub against not really trees, but shrubs, rocks, and their urine and, of course, their poop or scat have a chemical message that can convey who they are, their reproductive status, and even their territory, so that other males especially, won't cross it. And when it comes to other types of communication for vocalization, the Gobi bears will use low-frequency vocalizations like grunts, huffs, moans, and roars. They're not a super vocal bear. They're usually using a lot of these vocalizations for warning or for mating. And of course, some of the grunts and moans would be more for parent-offspring discussions. And then, of course, if they're stressed out. So the Gobi bear cubs, super darling. Bear cubs are just the best, right? They'll whimper or maybe like make little humming noises to their moms. But yeah. And then, of course, when it comes to more territory marking or scent marking, the Gobi bear will scratch or dig the ground near the oasis to help redefine their territories and leave their chemical cues behind when needed. And as a solitary bear, the body language that they communicate to one another is once again more just either to communicate dominance and territory with males, and then, of course, either aggression or submissive postures. And that's usually through movements. If you think of like your dog or something like that. The male bears will stand on their hind legs. They may even bluff charge. And then I thought this is a fun one. Sometimes the Gobi bear will yawn, which basically will show disinterest. Hopefully you're not yawning while you're listening to this podcast.
I maybe almost want to yawn.
Or submission too, depending on if they're in like a little aggressive discussion. But
sorry.
Go ahead.
I hate butting in, but the reason I said that, yawn, not that it's boring. I think that's what you meant. I'm saying, but don't you, when it's that reflex when somebody says yawn or you, I guarantee you when you said yawn, somebody yawns. Some people yawn.
Well, I appreciate
or you see the photo of yawning.
These smart child authors, when I'm reading to Maddox at nighttime, a lot of our nighttime books, they're always, at the very end, they're always like, oh, and then the mommy bear yawns and baby, and I look over, he's yawning. I'm like, okay, we're all mission accomplished almost, right? So yeah, it's a reason they put it in books and we talk about it. But
so I apologize for butting it. Yeah, I apologize for butting
always
it.
Butt in, please. That's why this
your
podcast
stuff is
super
fascinating.
Fun.
This is
super fun.
Fascinating.
But yeah, so they definitely have a lot of ways to communicate to each other between mom and cub, and then two male bears that may cross each other's path. And then, of course, male and female will come together for breeding, and they have their own, of course, ways to communicate with each other that they have interest in breeding. And that's primarily going to be through chemical cues, right? And so they have, as Chris mentioned, They have 2,000 times the sense of smell to us humans. So you can better believe that the male can tell if the female is coming into estrus. And so researchers do know that the Gobi bear, their mating season will occur primarily in late spring to early summer from about May to June. I'm sorry, May to July. And that, of course, will coincide with food availability. Better weather, not too hot. Stuff is, if it is growing, it's starting to grow again from the seeds that the Gobi bear planted last year when it was walking through the terrain. And so when a male does recognize this and he's able to find the female, they will exhibit some courtship behaviors. And so in general, the male will just follow the female, and he tracks her based on the scent from her scat and her urine. And when he does find the female, the courtship will last several days, and he just kind of hangs out.
Hmm.
He's like the shadow. He just kind of just hangs out. And there's so few of them, and their territories are so big. I couldn't really find any data if there's like male competition or anything like that. So that's probably to be determined. I imagine sometime there is. And the males will have to compete for access to females, and that's what we see in a lot of our other brown bear species. But whether or not fights occur, I don't know if we have any of that on film. But I would assume if there is male to male Gobi bear competition for females, the fights will be non-lethal. That's what we usually see in our other brown bear species. Dominance becomes pretty clear between two males, kind of scrapping over a female because of size and
Hmm.
maturity and age, and then the other one will submit. So they're not trying to get hurt or be tough. I know we fear that grizzly bear standing up, but they're not all attack, even over the rights of breeding a female. So uh, reproductive data in general is very scarce. Once again, that's why they need to hire us or other people to study these things.
Yes.
I would be there maybe in the summer months. Spring sounds like the best time to be there.
Summer. Yeah. No, thanks.
uh,
Yeah.
but what we do know is that, or what researchers think is that Gobi bears are probably induced ovulators. That means the ovulation is triggered more by mating than occurring spontaneously. So once again, that's to be determined. But the other assumption, based on just their heritage and their relatives, is that when male and female do breed, and remember this is going to happen in whatever June-ish, fertilization happens, but the Gobi bear, they believe, has what we call delayed implantation or embryonic diapause, which we see that in other bear species. And that's where the egg's been fertilized, but it's become an embryo, several days old, but it's not really attached to the uterus. The embryo just remains basically free floating and developmentally arrested. So this always just blows my mind. If we could pause for a second about embryonic diapause, because it's just like suspended animation, which we don't know the last I looked, we don't necessarily know the hormones that cause this and how is the cell just dividing. Stop. It's hammer time. No, but stop. And it just waits. So this little embryo or embryos, because spoiler alert, Gobi bears typically have between 1 and 3 cubs. They just stop. And the cells don't die. Nothing bad happens. It's just a pause. And the implantation into the mom Gobi bear's uterus is delayed. And it just hangs out. And so when the cue for the embryo to, keep growing, so it was frozen, but then to start more cellular division and keep growing and getting bigger into a blastocyst and attached to the uterus, when that happens, active development is only between 56 and 60 days. Quick, 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 quick. So, the female usually gives birth to the cubs midwinter, mid to late winter. So yeah, it's really it's really, to me, it's just so fascinating.
Well, and it wasn't, yeah, because I mean, when we talk about the hibernating species, they have their cubs when they're hibernating.
Mhm.
She's producing milk, so I think they probably haven't had time to evolve a different strategy
Sure.
than the other brown bears on the planet.
Yeah,
But it's worked. It's worked for
sure.
them. It's
Well, yeah, I was
worked.
gonna say, in the timing of the diapause, termination when it stops and then when implantation begins, it definitely varies based on environmental and individual factors, depending on the mom's body condition, depending on the ambient temperature. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
it's
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
fascinating, right? It
yeah.
deserves
Always is
its own
biology.
chapter, yes.
Yeah,
But yeah, so then basically, the embryonic development will resume in the fall for 50, 60 days ish, and then the births will be in the winter den. And then, of course, the female Gobi bear typically gives birth to 1 to 3 cubs during the winter hibernation, or non-hibernation, however you look at it. And she'll protect her young in the den until spring. But let's just think about this for a second. This is in the winter in the Gobi Desert, minus 40 degrees Celsius.
yeah. Cold.
How is
Very
she making?
cold.
Well, she's making milk? She's making
Yeah,
fluid for these 1 to 3 cubs.
that's
Um,
tough.
yeah, she's a
Yeah,
superhero. I
yeah,
mean, really, really incredible. And maybe that's why it's more of an active hibernation too than a super dormant one. So if she did need to get up and like root around or something looking for food, depending on her nutritional status, or maybe that's why the diapause helps kind of time all of that. It's just fascinating. So, of course, Gobi Bear Cub will stay with the mom for about 6 months or so of nursing. So weaned at about 6 months, and then we'll hang out with mom for about 1.5 to 2 years. So probably learning all these essential survival skills for the harsh desert environment. It's important to hang out with mom for a while, which means that mom Gobi Bear is not going to have cubs every year, right? So, and then the other thing, when these cubs grow up, Gobi Bear cubs reach sexual maturity anywhere from 4 to 6 years old, which is similar to other brown bear species. So it'll be the cub that you saw on the wild ones. It'll be several years, on average 5 or so, before that bear will produce more
yeah,
offspring. If they're lucky, if they find a mate, if the
yeah.
conditions are right.
And they
So,
survive. Yeah,
and then
yeah,
survive, right? So this is where we talk about the slow generation interval. And this is why their conservation is one of the reasons why their conservation is not bouncing back, I guess, the way it should, for, in my opinion, a lot of efforts that Mongolia is doing to help protect this critically endangered subspecies.
yeah, yeah. I mean, critically endangered. 40 left. I just, again, shout out to the Wild Ones on Apple TV Plus. Kane and his team. The shots were that they took, the footage showing the young cub, part of the bid to make this a UNESCO World Heritage Site to protect the bears. Find any organizations out there. That's a tough
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah. Good,
Well,
good, good.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's why I was yeah, excited about this, because we know that some of their threats, of course, are this low population size, genetic diversity, skewed male ratio, slow generation interval. But we talked about climate change and drought and habitat loss and fragmentation. And the good news is that there is an awesome group called the Gobi Bear Project. I highly I highly recommend you check them out. They can be found at www.gobibearproject.org. Gobibear.org, and that's GOBIBEAR project.org. And they are on the mission to save the world's rarest bear. And what the Gobi Bear Project does is they can conduct genetic analysis and they monitor the populations. This is the group that operates kind of the supplemental feeding programs during harsh winters, and this can provide critical nourishment when the food is scarce to help the bears live. The Gobi Bear Project will also performs ongoing research about what is specifically threatening to them, whether it's habitat loss or climate change, water and soil contamination. There is some human-wildlife conflict in the region, like when Chris talks about roads and stuff going through the area. So the Gobi Bear Project helps try to develop effective solutions to some of these threats. And at the same time, they're building local conservation capacity, training rangers and Mongolian experts. So getting the public involved. And there's been several data produced in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so that's just told the same story that if we want a lot of these endangered animals to do well, we have to get local communities involved. We have to get them supporting what's going on. And that helps, of course, increase pride in where they live and and these unique animals that only are found in their area. It also helps reduce poaching. So the Gobi Bear Project is just building this local conservation by basically helping support ecological scholarship programs through education. They also will supply equipment like GPS devices and cameras to locals to help basically be citizen scientists. So, and then they have a beautiful website that will help educate people. They work on public campaigns. And of course, they collaborate with governments and other international organizations on why the Gobi Bear matters, why we shall protect it. So, yeah, it's a great group. I highly recommend you go like them on social media, check out their website, look at the pictures, and yeah, support them if you can. But definitely tell a friend about a Gobi Bear. I mean, Chris is my dear friend, one of
Yeah.
my besties over here that told me about the Gobi Bear, and I appreciate him for it because I got to learn a lot this week and get really excited about this species and about what people are doing to try to save it. And when you talk about the California grizzly, and was it the Mexican grizzly bear, like
Yeah.
poof,
Yeah.
gone in
Yep.
my grandparents'
Forever.
lifetime,
Yeah.
and my mom's lifetime. So I don't want that to happen in my kid's lifetime. We pause. There was probably a break in the audio or the video because my sons came in here to hug me goodnight and
Yeah.
tell me that they love me. And we were always like, "Oh, what species are you covering?" And the Gobi
Yeah.
bear. Oh, what is that? Look at this
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
want them to be there for their kids and their kids' kids.
Mm-hmm.
So together, by sharing this information, caring, helping educate others, supporting people like the Gobi Bear Project, watching wild ones, showing that to friends, things like this. It moves the needle in the right direction.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, I think we can end it at that. Like, just, keep in mind with uh, overconsumption. I think that's to help the Gobi bear and to
Yeah.
help all the species on planet. I think that's your take home message with that. And like Angie said, share this information and, and just thank you for listening. And to this point, thank you for caring because you definitely are invested in these animals. And from the bottom of my heart, and I know I could say this from Angie, thank you. Thank you for listening and watching, and stay tuned next week. We've got some great interviews coming, more species lined up. Yeah, we're gonna just keep hammering away.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.